Welcome to Module 6, Design Your Garden. Congratulations on choosing plants to meet your goals. As your next step, this video will help you understand the importance of having a garden design, what a good garden design takes into consideration, and who can help in the design process. Successful school gardens go through a design process before breaking ground. This is how your team can make sure its goals are realized and the plants you chose have the best chance of growing.
I think designing your garden is very valuable. It was important to first have the buy-in from the teachers who really wanted to be involved that first summer.
Just sitting down with the core group of people, deciding exactly what it is that you want to have, what you want to include in the garden, and then putting together a list of how you're going to get there.
There is a value in having the garden designed so that it flows. Then it's easier to branch out from there and continue.
It was good to have a good layout. It makes it easy to walk through the garden, to work in the garden. We wanted it to be functional so we could walk through it. We wanted it to be near the school and the water supply. So it is a good idea to have a plan, and a good plan is always best.
If you have a good, solid design for the garden, a lot of the people who don't have direct input into the garden, you'll be able to pull on board a lot easier.
It's important for your core team to approve a garden design before you begin. It helps everyone get on the same page visually. It also becomes a tool for clearly communicating with anyone not on the core garden team to get their engagement later. Let's find out what's taken into consideration when creating a good garden design. To find the answer, we interviewed dozens of school garden coordinators, volunteers, and organizations that support school gardens, and it turns out there was a strong consensus about 4 key issues that every garden design should consider.
We suggest to start small and then grow from there.
In a school garden, it's easy to get really excited and ambitious about the idea, and you're like, we're going to feed the whole community, and we've got to have 25 raised beds, and first of all, that's going to be a lot of money and time, and you're going to get burnt out maybe.
A lot of people in the beginning want to help, but they don't realize the effort and the amount of sweat equity you need to put in to really sustain a garden.
It's okay to just have a couple of plants the first year that you do a garden, and then slowly build from there if it's something that's gonna sustain itself.
From a planning standpoint, phases are easy. You go your first time and you have 100 square feet of a spot. Well, in mind you have 500 square feet.
Maybe even begin with one bed or a couple of pots and grow it from there. If you start small, then it's easier to realize, okay, this is what we have to do, and this is what we can sustain.
We put them outside the media center. I feel putting it on a common ground like that, where if it's just outside a single classroom, well then this 4th grade class can see it every day, but the kindergarten class in the building never sees it.
We've seen gardens before that had a great plan, they had a great idea to put in a garden, got things going, and then realized they had no access to water.
Look for your water source. Make sure that you aren't like miles away from the nearest spigot.
We're fortunate enough that a lot of our buildings you have a water spigot every so many feet. So you're pretty safe any side of the building as long as you're within, if you have a hose that'll reach 100 feet, as long as you're within 100 feet.
I've seen some school gardens that are actually planted under trees, which is not the place for a vegetable garden.
Is there enough light? Where's the best position? How is it going to do with the students year-round? Because during the school year, recess, this place is full of kids running around, want to climb, want to pick everything. So that's another thing we're going to keep in mind.
Depends on where student access is. If they have doors that kids use constantly, it's better to put something around that, because then if the students are involved, they see it every day, and it's more kind of just a reminder that, hey, we did this, and then they'll be more apt to maintain it.
Figuring out a way to kind of define the space so that people are going to respect the boundaries of the garden is important.
We just put a fence around our garden, so that helped out a lot, especially during recess, because kids are curious, they want to pull and want to see what's growing. And
Do you need a fence to protect your garden from deer? Do you need a fence to protect it from the community.
Unfortunately, here we deal with vandalism. So we put up the fence to kind of hopefully deter that. And we also put it up for safety because we're learning about food safety and how you just don't want, anybody walking through here and dogs and animals walking through here because that kind of compromises your food.
Some gardens have fences and locks on them, and some gardens are just wide open and anyone can come in. So kind of realizing who your community base is, who's going to use the garden, those are important questions to consider when designing the garden.
Our goal is to have a learning lab like with seating and a tarp and whiteboards where people could really come out here.
We did create this outdoor classroom where teachers come out and, the day's nice, why not just be outside?
I do think it is important to design the garden and just that mindset of you need to navigate through that garden.
Thinking about the pathways, how people are going to get through.
And there's enough space where everything's separated, so if somebody wants to walk on the path, then that's designated for walking. If somebody wants to sit in the grass, then go in the garden. So everything's pretty much sectioned off, but it's open and inviting.
A couple areas where students like to cut through the grass and stuff, and so it's basically always mud. So we have put a passion garden in one of those areas, and then we've also put mulch and other plants around by our busing area too, to prevent them from walking through the mud and making sure that they stay on the sidewalk more.
My teenagers designed a path with rocks, and then we had a wire tunnel, and then we had peas, growing over it, and the cherry tomatoes, so the kids could climb through and pick and eat, and they loved it.
And every building's different. I mean, we have 8 different elementaries, and 4 of them are somewhat identical with different orientation. A couple of them are completely different from each other.
Look at what you've got. It's going to be unique to every single school. And that's exciting to me.
Every good garden design should consider the size, location, boundaries, and usability of their garden. Starting small, siting properly, defining the borders, and making sure people can flow through the garden are all important. Taking these issues into consideration, who can help you design your garden? A Garden for Every School has tools to help you make key garden design choices. This video has its own planning guide, tips for recruiting local talent that can design your garden for free, and a budgeting tool for the materials you will need. Download planning guide number 6 for this video. Fill out each section as a team, invite a new design role to your team, and budget for your school garden design.